Welcome students. Welcome back to the class on international business communication. Today we will synergize whatever we have been talking about in the previous classes. We have talked about oral communication, we have talked about verbal communication, we have talked about non-verbal communication, and we have talked about the implications of the different concepts related to these different types of communication, the different channels of communication. Today we have we have talked about intercultural communication, which is the very important aspect of communication, which is the most important thing in international business, and that is intercultural communication. And today we will start bringing these different ideas, different concepts together. Now, I was having a discussion, a very interesting discussion with one of my students the other day, and we talked about how different it is to teach and learn the social science, and that is what makes the teaching and learning of this subject. And we talked about how difficult it is to teach and learn the social science, and that is what makes the teaching and learning of this subject so difficult. It's not linear, it's not unidirectional, it is not there. It's not there is some sequence to it, but everything is interrelated. So I could be talking about communication styles in the very beginning, and I could be telling you about verbal and non-verbal communication later on, and different people do this differently. There's no right or wrong way of going about it, and that's what makes the teaching and learning of this subject very difficult. Now, the easy part is that we are doing this 24 hours. We are doing this all the time 24/7. We are communicating verbally and non verbally 20 hours a day, 7 days of week, all the time. And that is where the applications of these things come in. So, I want you, before we even get into this synergy, I would like you to start thinking about and start recognizing the examples from your daily life. Start recognizing whatever we talked about through the examples of behaviors in your daily life. And before we getting to communication style, there is one more thing that I would like to bring to your attention or bring to your notice. And again, as one of my very senior colleagues once pointed out, bring something to somebody's notice or attention has the phrase as a negative connotation. And for want of a better phrase, I would like to share with you this very important debate that has been going on as far as the styles of communication are concerned. Okay, so the biggest problem here is to figure out whether behavior is affecting communication or whether communication is a part of behavior. Now, historically, communication styles have been studied differently. They have been studied as the part of personality, but when we look at it very deeply, we realize that it is communication. It is the manner in which we communicate that determines the kind of personality people think we have, and that fills into what we think about ourselves, as we have talked about in our discussions on identity, and that in turn influences what we send out into our environments and how we send out. And we will come to that later on. But considering this whole chaos, this mess of communication, considering this mess of the communication styles, let us now get into communication style. Communication style. What is communication style? Communication style, this is the question raised here. So, communication style is an individual's tendency to communicate via unique patterns of combinations of code, content, and communication rules. That is called here communication style. I will repeat here. Communication style is an individual's tendency to communicate via unique patterns of combinations of code, content, and communication tools. What does this mean? When we talk about combinations of code, what kind of code are we talking about? So by code we mean the language that we use. Content is what we put in it, the words that we pick from that language, and communicate rules are contextual. So these all are considered here as a communication style. So our inherent tendency to communicate via unique patterns of combinations of code, which is language, the words that we take from that language, and that rules we follow while speaking in that language to somebody who is familiar with the language, and to somebody who may not be that familiar with that language. And that could be true for the people listening to this lecture. The manner in which I am trying to explain communication styles to people, again, the whole purpose of this series of lectures through the National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning is to reach out to the message to people who are far away and who cannot come to places like IIT, NITs. Okay, so this course is designed by NPTEL, students. Okay, again, most of the material is related to this NPTEL course, that is business communication. Okay, and the whole purpose of this lecture is to reach them and give them as good quality of education as possible, so that they do not feel left out. And of course, the staff of NPTEL is doing their service. They have come from the same community. They are trying to give back to the same community. So I am trying to explain communication styles to people out there to you, and the manner in which I am doing it is very specific to the situation. I am using a combination of code, which is English language. English is not my mother tongue. I am learned English just as you did in school, but I have been speaking it regularly for a long time, so I feel I am very comfortable with the grasp I have on the language. I feel confident about the language. I think I know enough about the language to talk in it, to write in it, to think in it. But that code is the language, and many of you, I am assuming, speak other languages. Many of you do not have English as the mother tongue. Many of you have maybe Hindi, Punjabi, Gujarati, Marathi, whatever your region is, you have that is your regional language. So this is the different code. Next is that the content. The content, the words I am using. If I was talking to somebody, to an expert in communication, if I was talking to my professor, I would not have taken more than 30 seconds to come up with the precise interpretation of this definition. Why? Because the words that my professor expects me to use while explaining this will be very different from the words you expect me to use. When I say code, I don't have to explain to my professor what code is, because that professor has shared the information about the code. When I say content in a message, I don't have to explain that to my professor. Another example I will give here: whenever you say program, as you are students of CSE, whenever you will say program, there is no extra explanation is required to uh, tell about the program, because your teacher know well what you are talking. So that program word is your coding, and you have used that code there. So when I say content in a message, I don't have to explain that to my professor. Why? Because this person has taught me most of what, probably everything I know about communication. And communication rules, when we say communication rules, how I talk to you, I am talking to you from the place of authority. And of course, this is unidirectional communication. Even if this for your real class, I would expect my student to first listen to me, and only when I ask them, only when I stopped or finished explaining what I was explaining, I would expect my students to come up to me, interrupt to me, ask me questions only after they had raised their hands, and only after I had pointed out one person out and said, "You tell me what you want to know." So that is the combination of code, content, and communication rules. I cannot do that with you, and that's why the manner in which the patterns that I follow to integrate the code, that content, and the rules are different from the patterns I would follow when I was talking to a person in authority. and that would be different from what I would follow when I was in a classroom where I had several students sitting there, maybe 70, 60, listening to me. Some of them would not be paying attention. Some of them would have many other things on their minds. Some of them could be distracted. Some of them would actually be, hopefully most of them would be paying attention to me. Now the other thing here is, from in intercultural communication point of view, communication style is the tonal coloring. Okay, communication style is the tonal coloring. The tone, the extra linguistic features that we, or the paralanguage that we attach to the language or to the words or to the code. The meta message that contextualizes how listeners are expected to accept and interpret verbal messages. We talked about Barlow's model in the very first lecture, I think. We talked about the importance of context. We talked about how the creation or encoding of a message differs from the decoding or reception of a message. We also talked about the wrapping of a message with the context of the channel that is used. So this is the meta language, meta message, which means the philosophical idea attached to the message. That is meta message. So my perception of what the message is and what it is supposed to do. The perception of the listener about the message is and what supposed to do, and that contextualizes how the listener or the recipient of a message is supposed to accept and interpret the message. I will give you an example. I am hoping that you, the listeners of this course, the people who are receiving this course through YouTube or through some other channel, whatever that may be in your case, and hoping that you are listening to what I am saying. I am hoping that you will take these keywords that I point out to you and you will go with them and you will look them up. You will maybe consult to the web course that I hopefully will be able to offer, and you will get back to me. If you have any questions, you will contact your teachers, and hopefully maybe 1,000 people will get interested enough to contact me and ask me if I can train them little bit more on communication. So that is my expectation. Now that is a context that I am attaching to the message, and that's my tone is defining how I am drafting the message, how many times I am repeating the same concept. So that is the tonal coloring. And Martin and Nakayama, for the proponents in intercultural communication, for the stalwarts in intercommunication, are the ones who have come up with the explanation. It combines both language and non-verbal communication, as we have already established, that is communication style. Now the background, let us see the background of communication style. The background of communication style is that how that it all began. It started historically. It was restricted to royalty. It became part of training to people involved in international trade. It has been involved. It has been a part of training to a people involved in international trade for thousands of years. And initially, when the international trades started, the people involved in trading across the border were royalty. So royalty were sons of pharaohs is where we initially documentation is from. I'm sure it is happening in other cultures also. But the sons and daughters, the daughters of pharaohs who are married into other countries, into other cultures sometimes. Again, you may check this information history if there are any mismatch. But that is what I have found initially through JSTOR publications, JSTOR General Store, which is the database. Now it has been studied. It has also been studied as part of personality for almost a century. Then the MBTI is the Myers-Briggs type of inventory that is based on the Jungian style. This is not. It is not Jungian. It is not Hungian. It is not Jungian styles. Carl Jung, a famous psychologist, came up with these styles of personalities, came up with these categories of people. He said that people communicate in a manner to be perceived as collaborators or controllers. I'm ordering you. I have the authority to make you do something, and that is the controller. Collaborator. I'm going to work with you and get something done, that is the collaborator. The analyzer. I will first look into whatever is happening. I will first cut it up piece by piece. I will go through it step by step, and then I will figure it out what is going on. And socializers. Let us be friends. Let us talk, and then we will hopefully implicitly, in and throughout communication, will start understanding what our lies all are about. So that is one side of communication styles. We will see a lot more. I wish I could categorize all the communication styles, give you one formula, but there is none. Different people have studied communication differently. They have come up with different styles depending on how the analyze how to analyze whatever they studied. So none of these definitions or categories that I'm just going to give you is the only one, is the most important one. Every one of these categories that I am going to share with you and stands on its own merits and is open to criticism, debate, whatever you may like to call it. But as your teacher, it's my responsibility to share with you the diversity of opinions that exists on this. So you can see, we are unique people, and that's why we all come up with our own understanding of how to categorize people and how to categorize their behaviors. And according to an article in the Handbook of Interpersonal Communication that I've shared with you is the past classes. I shared you in the past classes. We have some communicative dispositions, and daily in this paper that was published in this book in 2011 says that we have 4 levels of communicative dispositions. The first one is argumentative and verbal aggressiveness. Okay, argumentativeness. So this is inherent tendency to communicate in a particular manner. The first one here is argumentativeness, which involves an individual's willingness to attack another's arguments while defending his or her own position, and that is argumentativeness. And it is perceived to be constructive and an indication of the speaker's resistance to persuasive attempts. The speaker is not going to persuade you, rather he is argumenting with you. His willingness to attack your argument, that is called here aggressiveness. Okay, so argumentativeness. So see here, so argumentativeness is good as long as we debate on somebody else's arguments and defend our own position, and that is an inherent disposition, that is an inherent tendency, internal urge to do that. Some of us have that urge. You can see that in your own daily lives. The other side of it is verbal aggressiveness, which is attacking the self concept of others, attempting to cause psychological pain. Means when we are aggressively speaking, it means that we are giving psychological pain to others. So this is more negative kind of behavior where we are not trying to defend our point. We are trying to attack the self concept of other people around us, and we are intentionally trying to cause psychological pain to the person we are interacting with. Verbal aggressiveness is perceived to be indicative of dislike for others, dissatisfaction, low communication skills, more physical aggression, defensiveness, and unwillingness to accept mistakes. I am who I am. I will stick to my gun. I will not give you reason for sticking to my point. I don't care what you think. I don't want to collaborate. I am going to fight, and I am going to have my own way. It is the opposite of verbal benevolence. Verbal benevolence is person's tendency to agree to everything that is being said. Yes, madam. Yes, sir. Now, this is the opposite. I'm never going to agree with you. I will never accept whatever you are saying at face value. I will attack it because it's my way or the highway. It's my way or the highway. And again, there are benefits to such things also. If you're like that, you may win in some situations where you really need to win. But of course, it doesn't come across very comfortable. The second type of communicative apprehension, the second type of communicative disposition is that communicative apprehension. Communicative disposition is communication apprehension. This is something I want you to think about. Okay, so this is our inherent tendency to not communicate and scared of communication. What is the word of apprehension mean? Apprehension means I am scared to communicate. I don't want to communicate because there is some fear in me that is stopping me from communicating with you. It has alternatively been labeled as reticence, social communicative anxiety. I'm scared, I'm anxious, I'm worried about communicating with the people. Shyness, which is considered the virtue in many cultures, and social anxiety. Okay, uh, it indicates less likelihood in social settings, engagement, in less eye contact. And again, all these things are culture specific. In some culture, the willingness or ability or person's nature or disposition or person's behavior in which the person doesn't make enough eye contact with people, the people are supposed to be very respectful. In other cultures, people who not making eye contacts considering to be very flaky and invasive. But it all these things are not none of this absolute. None of this is the only thing. You are welcome to disagree. You are welcome to find other opinions. Then and refuse this opinions and debate. I welcome all of you to debate. And if you give me an opinion that is different, and if this logical behind it, I will very gratefully accept. Whatever you are telling me, this is what I have read, I could be wrong. And this is definitely not an exhaustive list. So next is that tendency. Lesser tendency to disclose information is given associated. Okay, lesser tendency to disclose the information is again associated with communication apprehension. I'm scared to share my information with people, and that's why ultimately I'm scared to make contact with the people. So I will not feel like sharing whatever I know with people. It is also been labeled as introversion. Introversion was an was his introversion was an extraversion. So introverts do not normally like to share things with people. So lesser conversation sensitivity. Now, if I'm not open to sharing information about myself, I'm also in a way preventing myself from receiving the signals coming to me from my environment. I'm not opening up. I'm not sensitive to whatever is happening in my environment, and that somehow comes to the territory. Since I have blocked probably people out, I have put them out of my shell. I have this big wall around myself. I'm not sending signals out, but I also have a tendency to not let signals come in. And that is the what this phrase lesser conversational sensitivity means. Lesser likelihood to select occupations that require communication. I'm not comfortable talking to people. I have this big wall around myself. So I'm not comfortable engaging in occupations or taking up occupations, doing work that requires me to talk to people. And believe it or not, such people, if a person has a choice, if something sharing, engineering or medicine, a person who has got mission in both the programs after class well, there are a few of those people, and there are people who do not, who do both the courses in foreign countries. But here it is good to be selected for medical college and an engineering college at the same time. People usually going for one or the other. Person who is apprehensive about communication would probably prefer to take up engineering as compared to medicine. Why? Because in medicine, the person will have to constantly deal with patients. We have to constantly talk to people. If a person has a choice between research and research, the research side and the teaching side of any profession, many was who do PhDs. We have a choice. Many was getting to research. Many was going into teaching. So those of us who are scared of talking to people, talk usually retreat into the research side. We focus more on research. And again, my colleagues are welcome to disagree, but that has been my conversation. And of course, these things are being true and through research also. So we had likely to select occupation that requires lesser likely selecting occupations that require communication. And you, the people who are listening to this course, you really need to pay attention to this. You have to recognize, okay, you have to recognize what your inherent tendency is, what you feel like doing and what you do not feel like doing. You, many of you could be at the beginning of your career, many of you still be at a stage where you are trying to decide what to take up as your career. So you have to recognize whether you are shy about meeting people, whether you are uncomfortable talking to people. In that case, it may not be a very wise idea to take up occupations that require you to deal with people unless you are really ready to overcome that tendency. And many of us are able to do that. We are scared. We get into situations. We throw ourselves into do what situation, and we learn. I am one such example. Anyway, less willingness to seek career advancement. These people who are apprehensive about communicating with people become more complacent about their own, about changes in their life, in their professional lives. And they are scared to talk to new people. They are scared or not scared, but they are apprehensive. They are anxious. They have higher level of anxiety about going into new situation and readjusting to new situation and reconnecting with new people. So what they do is they tend to stay longer in the organizations that they are in. They tend to not go into situations where the success is as assured. So their movement is somehow restricted by the inherent tendency to feel scared of communication with people. So conflict is another communicative disposition. Okay, so we'll talk about more with okay, we'll talk about more when we discuss conflict and negotiations. See here, conflict and other communicative dispositions we'll talk about more when we discuss conflict and negotiations in communication. Okay, so the last point here is communicative and social competence and skills. We have talked about communicative competence. Social competence is a larger skill, is a superset of which communicative competence is a part. So communicative skills depends largely on conversational sensitivity. We were just talking about the sensitivity to communicate with people, the sensitivity, conversational sensitivity in terms of communication apprehension. Now let us discuss what this means, what this is. So communicative apprehension, communicative sensitivity means it is the ability of conversational sensitivity taps an individual's ability to assess and respond to various communication challenges. So it is your ability to deal with different kinds of communication challenges. Now what affects conversational sensitivity? The first factor here is detecting meaning. Conversational memory is another one. Conversational, you have to be able to find meaning. You have to be able to recognize that something is going on in your environment. Conversational memory, what do I tie these things in with in my past? Conversational alternatives means, do I have what I have said in the past I can repeat in this current situation. Then copying and pasting from our past experiences, that is conversational memory. Conversational alternatives, what if whatever I know about such a situation in the past, it is not applied to this situation, that is called conversational alternatives. What are the alternatives I have? Can I get into can I draw from some other situation that was different from this, but still come up with some type of conversation, some context mix that I can apply to the situation. So conversational imagination, how able am I to think out of the box and pull out different alternatives to deal with this situation? So, different ways of receiving information coming from my environment. Can I classify this information, or should I just accept it as a different bit of information that is coming to me? So, conversational enjoyment, you recognize things. You have tagged them, you have put them into different files. Now, is it is the time to sit and actually start feeling and detecting and understanding your own comfort levels in that conversation. Once that happens, then we start interpreting, and after that we decide whether we would like to get into a similar situation or not. And that is the perception affinity. Okay, so uh, let us stop here, and we may proceed, we may cover remaining content in next video lecture. Till then, thank you.